The call came in at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Marcus was sound asleep when his phone started ringing, the harsh tone cutting through the darkness of his bedroom. He grabbed it on the third ring, already knowing it had to be something serious. Emergency calls in the middle of the night always were. "Marcus, it's Bill. We've got a big one. Multi-car accident on Highway 15 near the Riverside exit. Emergency services are requesting all available units." Marcus was already getting dressed. "How many vehicles?" "At least 4. Maybe more. Rain started again about an hour ago and the roads are slick. One of the vehicles went over the guardrail into the ravine. Fire department's en route, but they're requesting additional rescue support." As Marcus drove through the pre-dawn darkness, his radio crackled with updates from the scene. The situation was worse than Bill had initially described. A drunk driver had caused a chain reaction collision involving 6 vehicles. 2 people were trapped in the ravine, and the fire department was having trouble reaching them, due to the steep terrain and unstable positioning of the vehicle. When Marcus arrived at the scene, he could see why they'd called for additional help. The accident had occurred at one of the most dangerous spots on Highway 15, where the road curved sharply alongside a deep ravine. Emergency vehicles lined the highway, their red and blue lights painting the wet asphalt in urgent colors. Fire Chief Rodriguez met Marcus at the command post. "Johnson, thank God we've got a situation down there." He pointed toward the ravine, where flashlights could be seen moving in the darkness below. Silver SUV went over the rail about 40 feet down. 2 occupants, both alive but injured. The vehicle's unstable, looks like it could slide further down the slope if we're not careful. Marcus grabbed his gear and followed Rodriguez to the edge of the ravine. In the harsh light of the emergency floodlights, he could see the SUV wedged precariously between 2 large trees. Without those trees, the vehicle would have rolled another 100 feet down into Miller Creek. "Who's down there?" Marcus asked. 2 females, adult and a teenager. The adult seems more seriously injured, possible head trauma. The teenager's conscious and talking, but she's trapped in the passenger side. Something about the description made Marcus's stomach clench. 2 females, adult and teenager, in a silver SUV. He looked more carefully at the vehicle below, and his suspicion was confirmed by the partially visible license plate. Linda and Sarah Henderson. "What's the approach strategy?" Marcus asked, pushing aside his personal feelings. Right now, 2 people needed help, and that was all that mattered. Chief Rodriguez outlined the plan. The angle was too steep for the fire department's ladder truck, and the vehicle was too unstable for a conventional rope rescue. They needed someone to rappel down and secure the SUV before attempting to extract the occupants. "I can do it," Marcus said. "I'll need about 20 minutes to set up the anchor points and safety systems." As Marcus began rigging his equipment, he caught fragments of radio chatter from the paramedics who'd managed to make voice contact with the trapped occupants. Sarah was conscious and coherent, but frightened. Linda was drifting in and out of consciousness and had suffered what appeared to be a significant head injury. The descent into the ravine was treacherous. The wet rocks and loose soil made every step dangerous, and the SUV's position was even more precarious than it had looked from above. The vehicle was balanced on its side, held in place only by the 2 trees and some large rocks. Any significant movement could send it tumbling the rest of the way down to the creek. Marcus rappelled to the passenger side of the SUV, where Sarah was trapped. Through the cracked window, he could see her face, pale and frightened in the light from his helmet lamp. "Sarah? Can you hear me?" "It's Marcus Johnson." Her eyes widened with recognition. "Marcus? Oh God, Marcus, my mom is hurt really bad." "She's not responding." "I'm going to get both of you out of here," Marcus said, beginning his assessment of the situation. "But I need you to stay very still and do exactly what I tell you, okay?" The next hour was the most challenging rescue operation of Marcus's career. The SUV's position made every movement dangerous. He had to work slowly and methodically, first stabilizing the vehicle with steel cables and anchor points, then carefully extracting Sarah through the passenger window. Sarah was shaken but largely uninjured. As Marcus helped her into a rescue harness, she grabbed his arm. "Marcus, I need to tell you something." The accident, it wasn't really an accident. My mom was driving because my dad lost his license after the drunk driving arrest. She was upset, crying, not paying attention to the road. She kept saying it was all your fault. Marcus paused in his work. What do you mean? She blamed you for Dad's arrest. Saad, if you hadn't been there, if you hadn't made that incident report, Dad wouldn't have been charged. She was driving angry and not watching the road. Before Marcus could respond, Chief Rodriguez's voice crackled through the radio. Johnson, how are we looking down there? First victim ready for extraction, Marcus reported. But the adult victim is going to be more complicated. I need to stabilize the vehicle further before attempting removal. Getting Linda out took another 2 hours. She had regained consciousness but was disoriented and kept trying to resist the rescue efforts. At one point, as Marcus was positioning the backboard to move her, she looked up at him with unfocused eyes. You, she mumbled. Why is it always you? Marcus didn't respond. He just continued working to save her life. By the time both women were safely extracted and transported to the hospital, the sun was rising over the ravine. Marcus was exhausted, covered in mud, and nursing a dozen small cuts from the sharp rocks and twisted metal. But Linda and Sarah Henderson were alive. As Marcus packed up his equipment, Chief Rodriguez approached him. Hell of a job down there, Johnson. That was as complicated a vehicle extraction as I've ever seen. Just glad everyone made it out, Marcus said. There's something you should know, Rodriguez said, lowering his voice. The investigating officer found something interesting in the SUV, a folder full of documents. Looks like Mrs. Henderson has been building some kind of case against you and your company. Marcus looked up sharply. What kind of case? Complaints to the state licensing board. Letters to your company's insurance carrier. Copies of incident reports from other rescue operations you've done, with notes in the margins questioning your procedures. She's been trying to get your certifications revoked. The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. Linda Henderson hadn't just been spreading rumors. She'd been conducting a systematic campaign to destroy his career. There's more, Rodriguez continued. The officer also found correspondence with a lawyer. Looks like they were planning to sue you and Henderson's auto recovery for negligent rescue operation, claiming the flood rescue was botched and caused additional damage to their vehicle. Marcus sat down heavily on the bumper of his truck. After everything he'd done for this family, they had been actively working to destroy his livelihood. The crazy part is, Rodriguez said, I've worked with you on dozens of operations over the years. You're one of the best rescue techs in the state. Hell, you're probably one of the best in the region. Thanks, Chief, I appreciate that. No, you don't understand. I'm not just saying that to make you feel better. I'm stating a fact. Rodriguez pulled out his phone. There's something I think you should know. Something the Henderson family doesn't know. He showed Marcus a news article on his phone. The headline read, Local Rescue Specialist Honored for Outstanding Service. Marcus stared at the article, confused. It was about him, but it was dated from 2 years ago. He'd completely forgotten about it. You remember this? Rodriguez asked. The memory came flooding back. Marcus had received a commendation from the State Emergency Management Agency for his role in rescuing a family from a house fire. The rescue had been particularly challenging because the house was in a remote area, and Marcus had been the first responder on scene. I'd forgotten all about that, Marcus said. Well, I hadn't, and neither had some other people. After word started getting around about what the Hendersons were saying about you, I made some phone calls. Turns out that house fire rescue wasn't the only time you've been recognized. Rodriguez scrolled through his phone, showing Marcus several more articles and official documents. A commendation for rescuing hikers trapped in a blizzard. A letter of appreciation from the Coast Guard for assisting with a water rescue on Lake Monroe. A certificate from the Red Cross recognizing his volunteer work during the tornado outbreak 3 years ago. You've been quietly doing hero work for years, Rodriguez said. The Henderson family picked the wrong guy to mess with. As Marcus drove home that morning, his phone started ringing. The first call was from Bill Henderson, his supervisor. Marcus, I just got off the phone with Chief Rodriguez. He told me what happened last night and what they found in the Henderson vehicle. I want you to know that the company is behind you 100%. If they try to sue us, we'll fight it with everything we've got. The second call was from Officer Janet Cruz. Johnson, you need to hear this. I've been looking into the Henderson family after last night's accident. Robert Henderson's drunk driving case just got a lot more interesting. Turns out this wasn't his first DI. He had one about 5 years ago that got expunged. 3 weeks after the flood rescue, Marcus Johnson was having lunch at Danny's Diner when he overheard a conversation that made his stomach turn. Two men in expensive suits were talking loudly at the booth behind him, and one of them was definitely Robert Henderson. I'm telling you, Phil, it was like something out of a movie, Robert was saying. The whole area was underwater, and this guy comes rolling up in a beat-up tow truck like he's some kind of hero. Marcus kept eating his sandwich, but his ears were tuned to every word. So he got you out? The other man asked. Eventually, Robert said with a dismissive wave. But I swear I thought we were goners. The guy had no idea what he was doing. Just splashing around in the water, making it up as he went along. Lucky we didn't all drown. Marcus nearly choked on his food. No idea what he was doing. He'd executed a textbook water rescue using proper equipment and procedures that had probably saved their lives. Well, you're here now, Phil said. That's what matters. Barely, Robert continued. And get this, the insurance company wants to treat the whole thing like it was a legitimate rescue operation. They're talking about covering everything, no questions asked. $23,000 in damage, and they want to just write a check because some random tow truck driver happened to be in the area. Marcus's grip tightened on his sandwich. Random tow truck driver? He'd been dispatched by emergency services. It was his job? You fighting it? Phil asked. Damn right I'm fighting it. I've been paying premiums for 15 years. I deserve better than having my claim processed based on some amateur rescue operation. I mean, what if he damaged the car worse by dragging it out wrong? What if he wasn't even supposed to be doing water rescues? Marcus had heard enough. He stood up, left money on his table, and walked past Robert's booth on his way out. Robert was facing away from him and didn't notice, but his lunch companion looked up and made brief eye contact with Marcus. Something flickered across Phil's face, maybe recognition, maybe just curiosity about the tall black man walking past their table, outside the diner. Marcus sat in his truck for a few minutes, trying to process what he'd just heard. Robert Henderson was actually trying to get his insurance claim denied, claiming the rescue had been improper. After Marcus had risked his life to save his family, the radio crackled to life. Unit 7, we've got a situation on Elm Street. Residential area. Homeowner reports a vehicle crashed into their fence and the driver fled the scene. Marcus keyed the microphone. Unit 7 responding. Elm Street was in Willowbrook, one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the county. Tree-lined streets, perfect lawns, and houses that cost more than most people made in a decade. As Marcus drove through the area, he couldn't help but notice how people looked at his truck. A few homeowners who were out in their yards actually stopped what they were doing to stare. He found the damaged property easily enough. A section of ornate iron fencing had been completely destroyed, and tire tracks led from the street across a perfectly manicured lawn to where the fence used to be. A luxury sedan had clearly hit the fence at high speed before backing out and fleeing. The homeowner was waiting for him, a well-dressed woman in her 60s. You're from Henderson's Auto Recovery? She asked, looking at the logo on his truck. Yes, ma'am. I'm Marcus Johnson. You reported a hit and run? That's right. Happened about an hour ago. Woke me up from my afternoon nap. By the time I got outside, whoever did it was gone, but they left quite a mess. Marcus walked the scene, taking photos and measurements. The damage was extensive, not just to the fence, but to the lawn and landscaping. Whoever had done this had been driving fast and out of control. Any idea what kind of vehicle? Marcus asked. Big SUV of some kind. Silver or gray. One of those expensive ones, like a Cadillac or Lincoln. Marcus found himself thinking of the Henderson family's Escalade. But that was crazy. Their vehicle had been totaled in the flood unless ... Ma'am, did your insurance company recommend me specifically, or did you call Henderson's directly? Oh, I didn't call anyone. My neighbor across the street called you, said he'd seen your truck in the neighborhood before and thought you did good work. Marcus looked across the street. A man was standing in his driveway, watching them. Even from a distance, Marcus recognized him. It was Phil, the man who'd been having lunch with Robert Henderson after finishing the incident report. Marcus walked across the street. Phil met him halfway, extending his hand with a friendly smile. Phil Morrison, he said. I recommended your services to Mrs. Patterson over there. Marcus Johnson. We've met before, haven't we? Phil's smile wavered slightly. I don't think so. Are you sure? Danny's Diner, about an hour ago. You were having lunch with Robert Henderson. Now Phil's expression changed completely. Oh, that. Yes, well, he glanced around nervously. Look, I couldn't help but overhear what Robert was saying about your company. About the flood rescue, and... Phil lowered his voice. Between you and me, Robert's been telling that story all over the neighborhood. Making it sound like you guys botched the rescue, nearly got his family killed. I just wanted you to know that not all of us believe everything Robert Henderson says. Marcus studied Phil's face. Why did you recommend me to Mrs. Patterson? Because 3 weeks ago, I watched you risk your life to save 3 people from a flash flood. I was coming home from golf when I saw the emergency vehicles. Stopped to see if I could help. I saw the whole thing. This was news to Marcus. He hadn't noticed any bystanders during the rescue, but he'd been focused on the Henderson family. Phil continued, What you did out there was incredible. Professional, brave, and completely successful. So when Mrs. Patterson needed help today, I thought of you. Do you know what happened here? With the hit and run? Phil's expression grew uncomfortable. I might have an idea, but I can't say anything definitive. Marcus waited, sensing there was more to the story. Look, Phil said finally, I live in this neighborhood. I've seen things. Heard things. People around here sometimes think they're above certain consequences, if you know what I mean. Before Marcus could ask what he meant, his radio crackled again. Unit 7, we've got another call. This one's urgent. Residential area, same neighborhood. Homeowner reports someone crashed into their pool house. Marcus looked at Phil, same neighborhood? Sounds like it's getting worse, Phil said grimly. The second call was only 4 blocks away. This time, it wasn't just property damage. A silver Escalade had smashed through a fence and collided with a small pool house. The vehicle was still there, steam rising from its crumpled hood. And sitting behind the wheel, dazed and reeking of alcohol, was Robert Henderson. Marcus approached the vehicle carefully. Robert was conscious but clearly intoxicated. His face was bruised from the airbag deployment and he was mumbling incoherently. Sir? Mr. Henderson? Can you hear me? Robert's eyes focused on Marcus with difficulty. When recognition dawned, his expression shifted to something between confusion and anger. You, he slurred. What are you doing here? I'm here to help, sir. Are you injured? I don't need help from you, Robert said, trying unsuccessfully to open his door. I need a real professional. The homeowner, a man in his 40s wearing a tennis outfit, approached Marcus. Is he okay? Should we call an ambulance? Already did, Marcus said, checking his watch. Should be here in a few minutes. Police too? As if summoned by his words, sirens began wailing in the distance. Robert was becoming more agitated. This is ridiculous. I demand to speak to someone else. Someone qualified. Marcus continued his assessment of the scene. The Escalade was clearly a replacement for the flood-damaged vehicle. Same model, same color, probably purchased within the last few weeks. The damage to the pool house was significant, but it could have been much worse. If Robert had been going any faster, he might have ended up in the pool itself when the police and paramedics arrived. Marcus gave his report to Officer Janet Cruz, a veteran cop he'd worked with many times over the years. Drunk driving? She asked quietly. I'm not qualified to make that determination, Marcus said, but he definitely smells like alcohol. And his coordination seems impaired. Officer Cruz nodded and approached Robert's vehicle. The conversation that followed was brief and predictable. Robert failed the field sobriety test spectacularly, refused the breathalyzer, and became increasingly belligerent when Officer Cruz informed him he was under arrest. "This is harassment," Robert shouted as the handcuffs clicked into place. "I know my rights. I know people in this town." "I'm sure you do, sir," Officer Cruz said calmly. "You can call them from the station." As Robert was being led to the police car, he caught sight of Marcus and stopped. "You," he said, his voice dripping with venom. "This is your fault somehow, isn't it?" "You've been following me." Marcus said nothing. "I should have known," Robert continued. "People like you always want something." "What is it? Money? Revenge because I questioned your little rescue operation?" "Mr. Henderson," Marcus said quietly, "I'm just here doing my job." "Same as 3 weeks ago." "Bullshit!" Robert exploded. "This is too much of a coincidence. You show up here right when I have an accident? In this neighborhood?" Officer Cruz stepped between them. "Mr. Henderson, you need to calm down." Mr. Johnson responded to a service call, just like he always does. "He didn't cause your accident. Roll." Marcus Johnson wiped the sweat from his forehead as he guided his tow truck along the winding mountain road. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, and the radio crackled with reports of flash flood warnings throughout the region. He'd been working for Henderson's Auto Recovery for 3 years now, and weather like this always meant overtime. People got stranded, cars broke down, and someone had to help them out. The call had come in 20 minutes ago. A family trapped on Riverside Road after their SUV got caught in rising water. The dispatcher's voice had been urgent, almost panicked. Marcus knew that road well. It ran parallel to Miller Creek, which could turn from a gentle stream into a raging torrent in minutes during heavy rains. As he rounded the bend, Marcus saw them. A silver Escalade sat tilted at an odd angle, its front wheels submerged in muddy water that reached halfway up the doors. The creek had already jumped its banks, and the water was still rising. 3 people stood on the roof of the vehicle, a middle-aged man in a polo shirt, a woman clutching a designer purse, and what looked like their teenage daughter. Marcus parked his truck on higher ground and grabbed his equipment. The family was about 50 yards away, separated by fast-moving water that was getting deeper by the minute. He could see the panic in their faces, could hear their voices carried by the wind, though he couldn't make out the words yet. "Help! Please help us!" the man shouted as Marcus approached the water's edge. The current was stronger than it looked, carrying branches and debris downstream. This wasn't going to be a simple tow job. Marcus cupped his hands around his mouth. "I'm going to get you out of there. Just stay calm." He returned to his truck and radioed for emergency backup, then began setting up his rescue equipment. Years of experience had taught him to assess every situation carefully. The water was rising fast, but the Escalade was heavy enough to stay put for now. He had maybe 30 minutes before the situation became truly dangerous. As Marcus waded into the water with a rescue line, he got his first clear look at the family. The man was probably in his 50s, with perfectly styled gray hair that was now disheveled from the stress. His polo shirt had some kind of country club logo. The woman looked like she spent serious money on her appearance. Manicured nails, expensive jewelry, the works. Their daughter, maybe 16 or 17, was crying. "Are you the tow truck guy?" the man called out. "Jesus, finally. We've been stuck here for over an hour." "I'm Marcus," he called back, securing the rescue line to a sturdy tree. "I'm going to get you to safety, but I need you to listen carefully and do exactly what I say." The woman's voice carried over the water, tinged with something that made Marcus pause. "Robert, are you sure about this? Maybe we should wait for someone else." "Robert," the man shot her a look. "Linda, we don't have a choice. The water's getting higher." Marcus had dealt with all kinds of people in his line of work. He'd learned to read the subtle signs, the way some folks looked at him with surprise when he showed up to help, the way they hesitated before trusting him with their expensive cars. He developed thick skin about it, mostly, But there was something in Linda's tone that he recognized. The same tone his mother had described from her days as a housekeeper in the wealthy part of town. The tone that said she wasn't sure a black man was qualified to handle their emergency. Marcus pushed the thought aside. Right now, 3 people needed help, and that was all that mattered. The rescue took nearly 2 hours. Marcus had to make 3 trips across the increasingly dangerous water, first securing the vehicle with steel cables to prevent it from being swept away, then helping each family member across using a pulley system he'd rigged between his truck and a tree on the far side. Robert came first, nervous and awkward as Marcus guided him through the chest-deep water. "Careful with the rope," Robert kept saying. "Make sure it's tight. Are you sure you know what you're doing?" Linda was worse. She clutched Marcus's arm so hard her nails dug into his skin, but the whole time she kept looking around as if hoping someone else might show up to take over the rescue. When they reached safety, she immediately stepped away from him and brushed off her clothes. The daughter, Sarah, was different. She was scared, sure, but she looked Marcus in the eye when he reached for her. "Thank you," she said simply as he helped her down from the SUV roof. "I was really scared." "You did great," Marcus told her. Staying calm is the hardest part. By the time all 3 were safe, Marcus was exhausted. His clothes were soaked, his boots were full of muddy water, and he'd scraped his arm on some debris in the creek. But the family was alive and unharmed. That was what mattered. Robert stood by Marcus's truck, watching as the Escalade was finally pulled to safety. The vehicle was a mess, mud caked on every surface, water still draining from the interior. It would need extensive work. "So what's the damage?" Robert asked, not looking at Marcus directly. Marcus wiped his hands on a rag. "Well, the engine's probably hydrolocked. Water got into places it shouldn't be. You're looking at maybe 15 to 20,000 in repairs, minimum. Might be cheaper to total it out." Robert's face went white. 20,000 for water damage? "Modern cars have a lot of electronics," Marcus explained patiently. "Water and computers don't mix well. Your insurance should cover it, though, given the circumstances." Linda had been standing apart, talking quietly on her phone. Now she approached, her expression sour. "Robert, I just talked to our insurance agent. They want a full report of what happened. They're asking about the rescue operation." She looked at Marcus with obvious suspicion. "No offense, but are you actually certified for water rescues? Because if there's any question about whether this was handled properly, it could affect our claim." Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest. After risking his life to save theirs, after spending 2 hours in dangerous water, this was the thanks he got. Questions about his qualifications. "I've been doing this for 12 years, he said evenly. "Before Henderson's, I was with County Search and Rescue. I'm certified in water rescue, rope rescue, and vehicle recovery." Robert still wasn't looking at him. "It's just that our insurance is pretty strict about procedures. They might want documentation of your certifications." "No problem," Marcus said. "I'll include copies with my report." Sarah had been quiet through this exchange, but now she stepped forward. "Dad, he saved our lives." "Why are you talking about insurance?" "Sarah, adults are talking," Linda snapped. "You don't understand how complicated these things can be." Marcus began packing up his equipment. He dealt with ungrateful customers before, but this felt different. There was an edge to their suspicion that went beyond normal insurance concerns. As he loaded the last of his gear, Robert approached with an awkward expression. "Look, Marcus, right? We appreciate what you did today. It's just that we need to be careful about how this gets reported." "I understand," Marcus said, though he wasn't sure he did. Robert pulled out his wallet. "Here, let me give you something for going above and beyond." He held out a $20 bill. Marcus stared at it for a moment. He'd just spent 2 hours conducting a complex water rescue that could have cost him his life. His services alone were worth several $100s, not counting the risk premium. And this man was offering him $20 like he was a bellhop. "That's not necessary," Marcus said quietly. "Come on, take it," Robert insisted, still holding out the money. "You did good work." The condescension in his tone was unmistakable. Marcus had rescued this man's family from a life-threatening situation. and Robert was talking to him like he'd done a simple favor. Marcus climbed into his truck without taking the money. Through his windshield, he could see the family huddled together. Linda still on her phone, probably complaining to someone about the whole ordeal. Robert looked confused that his tip had been refused. As Marcus drove away, he caught a glimpse of Sarah in his side mirror. She was watching his truck disappear around the bend, a thoughtful expression on her face. The drive back to Henderson's gave Marcus time to think. He'd been in situations like this before, but not quite this blatant. Usually, people had the decency to hide their prejudice until after he'd helped them. The Hendersons, he'd caught their last name from Robert's phone conversation, had been different. Their distrust had been immediate and persistent, even after he'd proven himself. Back at the shop, Marcus filled out his incident report. He stuck to the facts: location, conditions, rescue procedures, vehicle damage assessment. He didn't mention Robert's tip offer or Linda's questions about his qualifications. That wasn't professional, and besides, he'd dealt with worse. His supervisor, Bill Henderson, looked over the report. Sounds like a rough one. That road floods every few years. You did good work out there. Just doing my job, Marcus said. Bill studied him for a moment. Everything okay? You seem a little off. Marcus considered telling him about the family's attitude, but decided against it. Bill was a good guy, but he wouldn't understand. He'd never had his qualifications questioned after saving someone's life. I'm fine, Marcus said. Just tired. That night, Marcus went home to his small apartment and tried to put the day behind him. He heated up leftover pizza and turned on the news. The lead story was about the flooding, with footage of various rescue operations throughout the region. Fire departments and